Literally here we're going to use the negatives, so it does the negatives, adds like 40% to the negative. So that's something you technically lose in the gym when you swing, and I say swing because not everybody swings weights around. No one really contracts under that load, under that resistance. You need to move the weight a little bit slower. So if you're moving like this is momentum, okay? Especially if you're holding the bar and the weight's coming down, this is just structure. You know, you're holding it and you're just technically resting for a couple seconds. You know, it has its purpose, and maybe if you're trying to maximize a little bit of strength, meaning you're just trying to move from point A to point B, lighting it up for those couple seconds could help, but at the cost of what? At the cost of ripping your bicep, right? So that's the only problem. But if we really want to make it stronger, make this bicep stronger, and mind you, we're obsessed with this muscle when in reality we shouldn't be. You know, what we need to do is technically conduct time to the load. Negatives and static holds are the best thing. You look at John Hart. If you look at his book, if you ever get it, it's a great book. He does cables, negative cables. What is it? Doug Brignoli. He recommends in his book, for example, doing them actually hammer curls. The funny thing is, when you look at the ARX, you have more strength bringing them up this way, but you exhaust them a lot faster, a lot quicker, versus if you're bringing them up like this in a hammer curl in this manner. So I would advocate doing all those movements. You also don't have to do a lot of repetitions and a lot of movements. Mind you that you're also doing a rowing action probably in your workout. Okay, you're picking up weights on a consistent basis too, as well, if you're in a regular gym. Here, you just get right to it. You just get right to the move. You don't have to worry about it. Then you save all your energy specifically for that specific movement. So therefore, you can devote time and effort into it. You want to stay away from too much volume. Volume is just endurance. That's all it is. You're getting into the endurance factor. Some people do respond really well to, you know, having an endurance workout where they're doing tons of volume, but most people don't, and that's why you shouldn't do that. You shouldn't conduct a lot of volume. You shouldn't do arms every day. You know what I mean? It just doesn't work for a lot of people. If you're blessed like that, hey, more power to you. Most people shouldn't be doing it. Also, too, at certain ages, you can rip your bicep, and then eventually you can get an injury. You know, so you need to make sure that, you know, this has rest time. You know, usually when you first start off, especially in high intensity training, you'll start off maybe like 3 days, you know, 4 days, or somewhere around there. You can even do 2 a week sometimes, just like we do in here. We can do 2 a week if your nervous system can handle it. Mostly it's mental. The machine adapts too. It technically, you know, if you started it one day, it was like, you know, let's say you did 100 pounds, then the next day you went down to 50, it would match you. So you don't really have to worry about, you know, doing twice a week. The biggest thing is if your nervous system can recover, and that's a big thing too that you need to discuss from a high intensity standpoint. And then we also have technique. Technique is tremendously important, right? So most people I see is they're doing this, a lot of this, you know, it's a lot of throwing weights all over the place, and they're not contracting down, descending, controlling the weight, and controlling the weight up. There's many different ranges of motion. You actually don't have to go all the way through the motion up until you squeeze, and then all the way down until you squeeze. You actually can move very, very little, or none at all actually, to get the contraction that you want. Also too, just popping it like this, okay, that's momentum. The minute you pop that and it catches air, you technically disengage the muscle. The muscle needs to be engaged on a consistent basis. Okay, so that's another one that people need to work on as well. You need to contract, and it could be you know, between tension of, you know, a count of 1 tempo all the way to a 10. It really depends what you're doing. Then another one that I see, hand grip, holding the bar like this. As you can see, my hand, it's like a cupping action like this. It's not going to work. Okay, your wrist. So in wrestling and in a lot of martial arts, your forearm technically is the weakest link for a lot of people. If this is not strong and doesn't marry up the system, then whatever you produced up here, back, strong hips, all that stuff goes out the window. That's why a lot of guys who do these awesome tricks, I call them tricks, but they're really strong actually, like, you know, bending, bending like frying pans and ripping cards and stuff like that. That's all hand grip stuff. And I advocate doing that on its own too. That has its own work to be done as well. But you should also be mindful when you lift. You should be mindful on how your hand position is, because that makes a big difference in the power output that you're producing. So it should be married like this, especially if there's a cable. It should be married like that, you know, coming down in the solidification with the radius, just like that. And I personally like cables. Cables are good. Dumbbells are not bad unless you're doing hammers, or maybe something so-called functional, but even then, you know, I know you're on a budget. You got sandbags that work really well, and then honestly, the best tool in the world is motorized resistance. That's what we got here, the ARX. So, and then you need to keep your wrists nice and aligned. The next thing to do is, if you just get the wrists all out, you just don't even use them at all, and you get cups. These little cufflinks here. Use them like this, you put them on your forearm. There's lots of machines out there too that have a pad that you can put your arm underneath, like this, and you would literally connect it in this manner. There we go. And we would pretty much hold like this. You would have to use a chain a little bit. And you can do a curl in this manner too, without using your hands. Also too, if you have disability, it works really well. You can pretty much do this for a lot of movements. You just have to get used to it and work on the technique. But there's definitely, I think, a Nautilus machine that was like this, and probably some out there on the market where you put your hands through and you use a pad, and then that gives you the ability to not to use your hands so much. Okay. You don't have, it's an ankle cuff. And then these are just hanging straps that you can use for statics as well. Just like that. So, and then you can develop time and effort into your grip. But the biggest thing is volume. You need to keep the cardio where it belongs, in the cardio room. Do your cardio if you have a sport. Fixate on your sport. Work your technique. Work your drills. Work your endurance in that. Get stronger in the gym. You need to build a foundation of strength. All right. There's a big difference between a man or a woman, okay, who can lift, who can lift puny weight like 100 pounds, and then now you're lifting 500. It's a big difference. The strength, you're literally contracting for 1 second in the sport. If you can project that 1 second with 500 pounds behind your muscle, and then with technique, you're gonna be stronger, you're gonna have more endurance. That's what you really need to devote on. Cardio belongs in the cardio realm. Stick to that, separate it, don't put it together. All you're doing is just making yourself tired.